Who's actually going to get the most out of this machine? Who can safely walk away? And does the price make sense for someone who just sews a few projects a month? Those are the three questions that keep most people up at night when they stare at an industrial-grade sewing machine on the Amazon page. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks looking at the Juki DDL 8700H, talking to a couple of upholstery shops, scrolling through forums where hobbyists compare heavy-duty machines, and even watching a few YouTube builds of home-based leather goods lines. What I found is that the machine sits at a sweet spot for a very specific crowd, but it can feel like buying a truck when you only need a compact car. First off, let's talk about what the DDL 8700H is really built for. This is a high-speed Lockstitch machine that comes as a complete package: the machine itself, a sturdy KD table, and an electronic DC servo motor that's rated for half horsepower. The servo motor gives you precise speed control without the hum you get from older induction motors, which is a big deal if you're stitching through thick canvas, denim, leather, or even upholstery foam. The auto lubrication system on the hook and bobbin area means you won't have to pause every few dozen minutes to grease the moving parts, something that matters when you're running a batch of 100 cushion covers or a series of leather belts. If you run a small upholstery shop, a custom leather bag business, or you're a serious maker who frequently works with heavyweight fabrics, the DDL 8700H can become a workhorse that saves you hours. Imagine you're reupholstering a vintage armchair. The frame is already built, you just need a straight, strong seam on the foam and the fabric. A home sewing machine would either bog down or produce a weak stitch that might pop under pressure. With this Juki, you can crank the speed up to 5,500 stitches per minute, keep a consistent tension, and trust that the Lockstitch will hold the layers together without slipping. The included table is not an afterthought, it's a solid, welded surface that lets you lay a full-size cushion without the wobble you get on a kitchen table. Now, let's flip the coin. The DDL 8700H is a single-needle, straight-stitch-only machine. That means if you want decorative stitches, zigzag, or even a basic stretch stitch for knits, you're out of luck. The lack of a walking foot is another practical limitation. A walking foot helps feed multiple layers evenly, which is essential when you're stitching thick leather jackets or layered denim. Without it, you'll need to rely on a manual technique or add a separate attachment that some users find fiddly. For a hobbyist who only sews quilts, dresses, or light curtains, those missing features become a real pain point. You'll end up spending time adjusting the feed, or worse, you might damage delicate fabrics because the machine is pushing too hard. Space is another hidden trade-off. The machine, table, and motor together take up a footprint similar to a small dining table. If you're working out of a cramped apartment or a garage that doubles as a workshop, you'll need to carve out a dedicated zone. That's a commitment that many casual sewists aren't ready to make. On the other hand, for anyone who already has a designated sewing area or a small studio, the built-in table actually solves a problem many industrial machines create: you don't have to hunt for a compatible work surface. Let's talk about the price-to-value equation. The DDL 8700H sits in a higher price tier than most domestic machines, but the cost includes the heavy-duty table and a servo motor that would otherwise be an aftermarket upgrade. If you compare it to buying a separate industrial machine, a separate table, and then a motor, you're actually saving a few $100s. More importantly, you're saving time that would be spent on assembly, alignment, and troubleshooting. For a business that can turn out an extra 10 products per week because the machine runs faster and more reliably, the ROI starts to look reasonable after a few months. Who should definitely consider pressing add to cart? Small-scale manufacturers who need consistent straight seams on heavy materials, upholstery repair professionals who handle a steady stream of furniture jobs, leather artisans who produce wallets, belts, or straps, and hobbyists who have moved beyond the hobby phase and are now selling their creations online. If you've hit the point where you're buying fabric by the yard, ordering bulk thread, and thinking about scaling up, the DDL 8700H gives you the durability and speed to keep up. Who should walk away? Anyone whose projects stay within the realm of lightweight cotton, jersey, or chiffon, anyone who relies on decorative stitches to add flair, and anyone who doesn't have a dedicated workspace. If you're the type